Hey y'all, it's Megan. If you are returning to my channel, welcome back, and if you're new, welcome aboard. So today I am going to be talking about anxiety at Disney. And I'm not talking about it from a guest perspective because I've mentioned before that I don't really have like crowd anxiety or anything like that. So I don't have any stories about where I was personally on a vacation at Disney World and was feeling like really anxious being around a whole bunch of people or being in a situation as a guest. But there were a couple situations as a cast member that made me a little like uptight and anxious, and I'm going to talk about those today. So the first one that I'm going to mention is when you go 101, which is in Disney lingo when the ride is down. You can go down for a lot of reasons. The Jungle Cruise is kind of unique from other attractions because the ride vehicles are self-sustained. It's not like there's a control panel, you know, that is controlling all the cars, and you know, here's this set of roller coaster cars and they go, and then here's this set and they go. Each boat is self-controlled. It is self-propelled. It is on its own. So if something happens to one of them, it doesn't necessarily stop the rest of them. So that being said, boats die kind of a lot. Things get sucked up into the underside of the boat and cause problems. They can run out of fuel, just things happen. These boats are old, you know, sometimes they just are like, nope, I'm done. And when that happens and you are on that boat, that can be kind of stressful. And that was one of the things that made me the most anxious when I was working at the Jungle Cruise. Up until it happened, I was so stressed out. I was like, oh my gosh, what if my boat dies? What if my boat dies? What am I gonna do? And then when it actually happened, it was stressful and I was anxious. And then after it happened, I was like, is it gonna happen again? So it's just one of those things that was a little anxiety causing for me. The reason that it caused anxiety for me is because I very much stuck to the script. If you've not listened to my Jungle Cruise spiel, I recorded it and I'll link that down there for you if you are interested in what my Jungle Cruise spiel was like back in 2012. But I very much was OG. I stuck to the script. I did not like branch out and do a whole bunch of crazy stuff because I'm not funny. I am not a comedian. I am not like just like wham bam, get the ad lib, just rolling it out. It's not a thing that I'm good at. So to be stuck and not have something to fill that time, I was like, oh my gosh, I have no idea what I'm going to say if this happens, because my spiel was pretty well timed to where like I knew exactly what I was going to say in this show scene and this show scene and this show scene all the way through, and there wasn't really much, you know, dead time, or there wasn't many extra things that I could throw in there if I had more time. So it was even kind of stressful if you had a slow boat, because I speak kind of quickly. So when I would get through all of my jokes on a slow boat before we were through the show scene, it's like I had my first boat die. It was the wheelchair boat. Oh, Bertha. One of my not so great cruises so far. You know, you just have those where people aren't into the puns, dad jokes are not their jam, and that's totally cool. But from a skipper standpoint, it's extraordinarily awkward when you are like trying and you're being, you know, punny and no one is responding, no one's laughing, no one's even cracking a smile, and you're like, this is awkward. So it was that kind of cruise. So we had gone through, we come through the headhunters, and I had one of the most awkward experiences that I've ever had as a cast member, because part of my spiel was to say, oh, everyone was absolutely paralyzed with fear, because, you know, it's like, oh, get down, get down. Oh, I see, no one got down, so I see that you were all paralyzed with fear. That's okay. And I had someone on the wheelchair boat who was in a wheelchair, who could not walk. And I was just, as soon as it came out of my mouth, I know I had to have made a face, because it was like, oh my goodness. This man is going to think that I am the rudest, most insensitive human being on the planet, but I swear it's part of the script. It wasn't directed at him. It was not meant to be offensive, and I just felt so bad immediately. And I was like, okay, regroup, get through the cruise, get through the cruise. You're almost done. So we go through the temple. I don't have to talk in their praise. So then we come out to the Indian elephant bathing pool, and as soon as we hit the Indian elephant bathing pool, boat dies. Just does not slow down, does not sputter, just, we're dead. She just stops, you hear the engine shut down, and we coasted into the pool. Now my boat is dead, my guests hate me. I have offended this man who is in his wheelchair just minding his business, having a Disney vacation. And now I have to figure out how to get this boat to the dock, which is like so close. If you've been on the Jungle Cruise, the Indian Elephant Bathing Pool is so close to the end of the ride. And I'm like, come on, here we go, push, let's go. Let's just keep coasting. But it's not having it. I mean, she just stopped. So we have radios on the boats. So I'm like, okay, let me get the radio out. So I pick up the radio and I'm holding down the button that I'm supposed to hold down. And I'm going, Bertha to dock, Bertha to dock. And no one's responding. Nothing. And I'm like, and I don't hear the echo that you normally hear with like a walkie-talkie radio thing. And I'm like, oh God, my radio doesn't work. Why doesn't my radio work? So I am like, I can do a couple of things. I can sit here and wait for someone to bump into me and then have them call. I can scream to the dock and see if they can hear me. None of these options are good, so I'm just like panicking. I'm like, oh God, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. About that time, the next boat started to come out of the temple and they saw me and he killed, you know, he stopped his boat so he didn't ram into me. And bless Dennis, he was like, yeah, right? And I said, my radio's dead. And he's like, all right, I got you. So he calls the dock. It took about a minute from that point for a rescue boat to back up through the jungle, come and rope me and tow me in, like, you know, like a little tugboat. And they just came and towed us in and everyone was really happy. I was like talking about, hey, that's my favorite plants as they're towing me through. And that was awkward. And then they got off my boat and they went about their day and I suppose they probably had a fine time. But I was so nervous about what to do in that situation. It had never happened before. I thought I had a plan. I thought I knew what to do. That didn't happen. So then everything just kind of went to heck and just everything hit the fan. And I was just like, okay, that happened. It will never be that bad again. And it wasn't. I did have boats die on me after that, but I had a radio that worked. So having boats die on you was maybe kind of anxious, the idea of it happening, when it actually happened, but something that was kind of anxiety inducing all the time was ye old flick card. And if you don't know what a flick card is, it is that little red card that people for some reason were enamored with. I don't think they use them anymore. I think everything's done through the magic bands now. But when I was working there, flick cards, which I don't even know what flick stood for. I just always thought of Bugs Life flick and that was just what it was to me. I don't know why. I didn't ever wonder what flick stood for, but anyway, that was to measure the wait times. So what would happen is out at the greeter position at Jungle Cruise, you would hear this horrifying loud beep, and that meant that it was time to scan one of the cards. So you'd scan it, you'd give it to someone who was just now entering into the line through the standby entrance, not through the fast pass, through the standby entrance. There was a separate one for fast pass, and they would carry it with them all the way through and then give it to the skipper that was loading them onto the boat, who would then scan it at another scan spot up by the load position. So they would take the average of, you know, like 5 or 6 cards that came through, and that would update the wait time. So we could tell how long these cards are traveling through the line, and that was how the wait times were updated. That sounds fine, right? Like, hey, cool. Updating wait times, not a big deal. It was so nerve-wracking because people did not necessarily know why you were handing them these cards. And a lot of people who go to Walt Disney World do not speak English. I have mentioned before, I do not speak any other languages. I speak English, and not that great, might I add. However, you have to kind of get a point across when you hand people these cards. It's not just like, hey, take this and whatever happens, happens. The cards serve a purpose, so you need whoever takes it to understand what needs to happen with it. Because way too many times people would take the card, they would forget they had it, or they wouldn't know what to do with it, and then when they got off the ride, they would just be like, oh, I had this, and they'd hand it to you. Or they just take it off and lay it somewhere. We saw so many flick cards just like draped over trees and over fence posts and stuff outside of the Jungle Cruise, and it's just like, oh, why? No wonder the wait times are so messed up. So that was really frustrating because you're like, we gotta have the wait times updated, and we don't know how to do that if people just take the cards with them or don't do stuff with them, whatever. So you would have to find someone who, A, could understand what you were saying and asking them to do. B, that would actually do it. Because a lot of people, like I said, would just like take it and forget about it and then like get off. So I learned why my mom got flip cards every single time we went to Disney World when I was younger. I was like, why is my mom getting these cards all the time? Because it was like every time we went on a ride, they'd be like, ma'am, excuse me, could you take this card? And she's like, yeah, sure. Like she just knew the drill at that point. And I didn't know why. I was like, what is it about her that is just like, you take this card? And it is because my mom has flaming red hair. And she definitely looks like she speaks English. Like she is good old Southern woman. And you can tell by looking at her. And I learned that because that was how I started doing things. I would start finding families that I was like, you speak English and I can understand what you're saying as you're walking towards me, so I know you can understand me. And I would ask them to take the cards. Another thing that I would do is I would find a kid, because the kids always really wanted to help. So I'd be out there and I'd be like holding a flip card and it would beep and I'd scan it. And then the next kid that came up, I'd be like, hey bud, do you want to help me out with something? And the kid would be like, yeah, absolutely. And I'm like, okay, you have a really, really important job. You have to take this card, okay? And when you get on the boat, hand it to the person who puts you on the boat. And he'd be like, okay. And I'm like, you are in charge of the wait time right now. Like, whatever you do shows people how long they're gonna be in line for this. And he's like, okay. And he would like, or she, the kid would take it and they'd be like really serious about it. And the parents are like, okay, you've got a job now. So finding kids made it a little bit less nerve-wracking for me, but that was, I don't know why, that was just one of those things that when I was a greeter I was like, oh god, I have to do the flip cards, I have to do the flip cards. And sometimes the other thing about flip cards that was nerve-wracking was they wouldn't scan. Like, I don't understand the science behind this, and if someone does, please explain it. So you had this card that theoretically has some kind of, you know, magnetic something in it that you would scan. The little square scanner beeps. You scan the flip card, it beeps again, and it's good. But sometimes it wouldn't take it. Like when you would scan, it would just like, it wouldn't give you the noise that says, hey, I've got it, we're good. So we would take the flip card and we would rub it on a metal pole by the scanner. And then that would make it scan. I don't know why that, did it like remagnetize it somehow? I don't understand what was happening there. But there was a little metal pole that had no paint in one spot where every skipper ever had rubbed the flip cards against it to make them scan. So that was nerve-wracking too, because you would catch someone coming up and you'd be like, hey guys, can I get you to scan this? Hang on. Y'all just wait right there. And you're like trying to, you're like, come on, come on, come on. And then you, thank you, could you take this with you, please? And so yeah, the flip cards, they are a badge, they're not there anymore, but they were a badge of honor for people. I have a picture of my husband because he was so excited. I think it was Rock and Roller Coaster that we got on. And he was like, yeah, I got the red card. And I think it's so funny that people got so excited about red cards, which wasn't a thing when I was there. So I'm sure that would have been, I'm sure it would have been great if people had been excited about the red cards while I was working there, because then people would walk by and be like, hey, can I take the card? And I'd be like, absolutely, please do. So that was something that I did when I went to the parks. I would go by the greeter, and if they were holding the card, I'd say, do you need me to take the flick? And they'd be like, yes, please. And I would take it. So, you know, other cast members try to help you out, because apparently it's a stressful thing for everyone. I don't know. Maybe it was just me, but it really ratcheted up that anxiety for some reason. So that's it for it was just a couple of things that while I was working at Jungle kind of made me anxious while I was working there. Like I've mentioned, I wasn't really bothered by the amount of people or anything like that, so I can't really speak to crowd anxiety working at Disney. If you have experiences where you know, if you do have crowd anxiety and you have experiences where you've worked in a really busy place, Disney World or otherwise, let us know down below what your experiences are and kind of how you dealt with those things. Because my philosophy I'm learning as I'm talking through this is just roll with it. Like these things made me anxious and I was just like, whoop, that sucks, and I'm just gonna stand here and panic and look awkward and just hope everything works out. There was no like real coping for me. It was just like, I'm awkward and I'm anxious and bye. So hopefully there's people out there who are better at coping with anxiety at Disney World than I am. And if you are, please do let us know your tips and tricks and how you do that down below. If you have questions about working at Disney World or questions about going to Disney World as a guest, if you are booking a trip for yourself, always do let me know those. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye, y'all.